We're going to have a good time. My class of 90 MBA classmates here. Show a good time. All right. I told them to heckle us. Just me, not them. But I really want to bring on the people who are going to be lots of fun. SkyDeck advisor Ciaran Quinn. Give him a big round of applause. And SkyDeck founder Lindsey Hoell. Give her a big round of applause. All right. Okay, this is what we're going to do today. I'm going to breeze through a whole bunch of slides about SkyDeck. You're welcome to have the deck just to give you an overview of SkyDeck. Because some of you just learning about SkyDeck today, right? Some of you, like a lot of you, already know SkyDeck. Advisors are here and mentors and maybe some founders. And then we're going to talk about how to engage with SkyDeck as an alum, because we got lots of ways to engage and, in fact, preview. Alumni are our superpower at SkyDeck. So with that said, you're going to find out exactly how. So let me blast through some slides. Who here is like, SkyDeck sounds cool, never heard of it? Anybody here? Okay. Archie, you were in my class. But all right, Archie and a couple others. SkyDeck advisors, raise your hand. We got Will, we got lots of people here. All right, and then the rest of you are just here because this sounds cool. How many people are startup founders here? All right, a bunch of you. Classmates, awesome. Okay, let's get going. I think clicker. Excellent. Okay, what is SkyDeck? I got to remind it. Does everybody, did you hear this already yet today?
Yes.
Will you please remember this? It's the one thing from the conference. We are number one. We beat Stanford. Totally beat Stanford. We will forever beat Stanford. We're staying at number one. So just so you know. And a lot of that was because of SkyDeck startups. So what is SkyDeck? We are Berkeley's accelerator. We're often confused with a partner or someone hanging out because we're downtown. We're not in an on-campus building. We are run by Berkeley. We are run for Berkeley. We are incredibly competitive. The acceptance rate is about 1%. That's the program that Lindsey's startup got into. And we're open to all founders. So not just Berkeley, but founders from around the world. So that's who we are. Don't ever think, if someone says, what's the relationship between SkyDeck and Berkeley? You say, SkyDeck is Berkeley. This is really, really important. This is what makes us who we are. What do we do? Quick overview. Accelerator programs, startups from all over the world. They get an investment by our special fund. An innovation partner program. We have to pay our own bills because we're a program that doesn't teach or do research. We do that mainly through sponsorships by international partners. And we have an incubator, Pad 13 we call it. Lots of moon rocket kind of imagery at SkyDeck. And that's where we have early stage founders. They don't receive an investment. Lots of Berkeley there, lots of Berkeley students there. Some quick numbers. I gotta update this. That 12 is too low. But to highlight, very competitive for the accelerator program. We got 3,000 applications for batch 20. We accepted 18. So you can do the math there. We've been around for 12 years. I've been at SkyDeck for 10 years. Over 2,000 startups now accelerated and incubated. That number 850, we're going to talk a lot about that. That's how many advisors and mentors we have. And that, again, as I mentioned earlier, this is our superpower. And funding raised by startups, about $2 billion. And startups that go through our program, like Lindsey's, as Lindsey did, raise institutional capital post-program. And as you know, that's a high number. What else we got here? All right, this is the coolest thing. When I joined SkyDeck 10 years ago, I said, let's do an accelerator. We need funding. And the campus said, we can't do that. We're a public university. Just can't do it. No problem. We found someone to run a dedicated venture fund. That fund, the Berkeley SkyDeck Fund, is like any other seed fund with a general partner and limited partners. But what's different about it is that the SkyDeck Fund has a legal agreement with Berkeley whereby the fund general partner will donate half the carry, that's fund profits, right, back to campus, back to SkyDeck. No other university in the world has this kind of arrangement with a private venture fund. Only at Berkeley. So what are we doing at SkyDeck? We're looking for the next Apple, Google, Tesla, dispatch goods, giant exit. What's our moonshot? We ask our founders to have a moonshot. Our moonshot is so much money comes in from those fund returns, nobody pays tuition at Berkeley ever again. This is a long shot, but it's not a non-zero possibility. We could do it. It is possible we could do it, and we're all incredibly excited about that. I'm particularly excited about that. As you know, I'm a Haas alum, obviously, because I'm here talking to you, but not just me. My parents went to Berkeley. My brother went to Berkeley. My cousin went to Berkeley. My uncle went to Berkeley. My first two husbands went to Berkeley. My third and current husband didn't go to Berkeley, but both his kids graduated from Berkeley, so he's qualified. And I currently have 2 children at Berkeley. One of my daughters is getting a PhD in neuroscience, and my son is a senior in political science. So I am as Berkeley as they come. So I am on a mission here. We do a lot with students. We have about 2,000 students come through we think we're the largest student intern fair on campus. We're matching them with our startups. And this, unlike any other campus, again, only at Berkeley, we're matching them with real startups in market with products, not projects, right? Why? Because we're Berkeley. We're in Silicon Valley. These are real companies. And our programming, just a quick overview, we do a lot of deep tech. We're open to any industry, anything from consumer to quantum, you name it, we've got it. But we have a lot of resources for deep tech. Why? Because we're Berkeley. We can, right? And we've gotten a lot of press lately, which is great. I got some cool awards. But our program, along with Berkeley, is really getting a lot of attention about just how well we're doing. People are noticing, right? And we're going to totally displace that campus down in South Bay that we mentioned earlier. So advisors. We got some cool people. Oh, only one thing I want you to remember from the weekend. Who founded Tesla? Did you know it was not Elon Musk? It was this very nice man, Mark Tarpenning, a Berkeley alum, who's an active Sky advisor. Really nice, humble guy, the opposite of the other guy. And so Berkeley founded Tesla. Just don't forget that. Janet Napolitano, you probably heard of her. And Kevin Chu. So we got some very cool people, including y'all in the room, and Ciaran. And they also do a lot of the programming at SkyDeck. We have about 60 workshops every batch, and these are just some of them. And then this is our team. We do all of this with 9 people, which continues to amaze even myself. And the reason we can is because of the advisor network, because of the extraordinary help that they provide. So people like Ciaran, people like Will, spend a lot of time, and this is pro bono time, because we're Berkeley, because we are on a mission, because we have the fund returns, because everybody knows that this isn't just a business. This is a purpose to serve Berkeley and the world. We get so much incredible expertise and heart and enthusiasm from our advisors and mentors. This is why we can do what we do with 9 people, is because it's such an extraordinary community. This is the fun team. These are the folks. Ciaran is the nice man who's going to write that big fat check to Berkeley when that carry comes in. They're all Berkeley, by the way. They're all Berkeley alums. Go Bears. Really amazing team of investors, just extraordinary. And we do a lot with bringing in superstars and rock stars, right, to get our community all excited, give them expertise. That's the Midas series. A point about Berkeley SkyDeck, and I'm not going to want to talk too long because I got to get to our cool guests. When it was founded, it was really thought of 2 important things. First of all, very high level. Let's not make it a small program somewhere. Let's make it very high level. Let's put the founders, the deans, the governing board, these people, right? And let's put it in the Office of Research, which is the Switzerland of campus. We're not Haas, we're not engineering, so we're Swiss neutral because we're open to the whole campus. That was very important and intentional. One of the founders of SkyDeck was a person you've heard about today, if you don't know him that well, Rich Lyons, our current chancellor. And I'm going to tell you a quick story about how I got to SkyDeck. So as Will mentioned, I was a founder. And I like to say before SkyDeck, I was a serial entrepreneur. And some of them I didn't kill. They grew up and got acquired. And after my company NeuroFocus was acquired, I was thinking about, wouldn't it be fun to start an accelerator? That'd be cool, that'd be fun. And then I thought, oh, that's a big capital-intensive project. Maybe Berkeley wants another SkyDeck somewhere else. So I went to an event, and there was Rich Lyons, who at the time was the dean of the business school, and one of the founders of SkyDeck. And so I walked up to him and I pitched him on SkyDeck West Berkeley. Little did I know they were looking for a new director. The next thing I knew, they called me into the office, and I ended up getting the job. So Berkeley gave me a chance. They gave me a chance. I had never run an accelerator. I'd never set foot in one, but they gave me a chance to run SkyDeck. And it was the second time Berkeley gave me a chance. The first time was in 1990 with my friends here, when the business school admitted me to the MBA program with just about zero business experience. I was a professional violinist before I got into the MBA program. And I went up to the MBA program admission director and I said, I'm really glad you let me in, but why did you? And she said, I figured if you could hack that really difficult conservatory program, you'd do okay in the business school. So Berkeley has given me a chance twice. And that is one of the reasons why I am so determined to bring these incredible returns to Berkeley. So that's what we do at Berkeley. We take people and we give them a chance, and it turns out that they're incredibly talented. So, as you're going to hear from these folks here. All right, so that's our mission. We're going to be the world's top accelerator, no qualifications, just the world's top accelerator, because we're Berkeley, we want to be the best. And to support Berkeley, of course, through the fund returns, through helping students find great opportunities, all of that. And in the meantime, we have a lot of fun. That's our group there. What else I got? Oh yeah, this was last night at my house. I hosted my MBA class. It is our 35th reunion, but we're all looking amazing. Brian, do you want to say something?
I just had a comment. I think you got into Haas because as a musician, they knew you could scale.
Excellent joke. Well done. Did you get that on the recording? That I got into Haas because they knew as a musician I could scale. I'm just repeating it to make sure it's on the... Thank you, Brian. See, that's my class right there. All right, we had a great time. So with that, I'm going to leave you with one thought, and that is airplane mode. What happens when you put your phone on airplane mode? Anybody want to put your phone on airplane mode right now? No. Nobody wants to. What happens to your phone when it's on airplane mode? It's disconnected, right? It's out of the network. It's just a nice little thing with all your pictures of your class reunion. It's a flashlight. Yeah, but not much else, right? So what I hope you get from today, by hearing how these folks are not on airplane mode, is to, especially this weekend, don't be on airplane mode. Be connected. And as Haas alums, you are part of, I will argue, the world's most powerful network as part of the Berkeley network. There's over 500,000 Berkeley alums around the world. And every one of them is in your tribe. Every single one of them. So turn off airplane mode. Connect with everybody. Before you leave this room, turn to someone you've never seen before and connect. LinkedIn, WhatsApp, text message, contact. Will you do that? One person you've never seen in your life before. Okay, so MBA classmates, you gotta go run there. All right, so with that, we're gonna hear about how to not be on airplane mode. Here today we have a founder who's in batch 10. Let me go to our slide here. And an advisor who is also in my MBA class of 90, our tribe here. So I'd love for them to briefly introduce themselves and about your company and what you've been doing. So let's start with Lindsey.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, I'm Lindsey, the CEO and founder of a company called Dispatch Goods. I started Dispatch while I was at Haas. Before that, I similarly had no business background. I had worked in the cardiac OR for over a decade, which took me to Hawaii. And so I was living and working in Hawaii. And I'm a surfer, so is my husband. We were hiking to a remote surf break on Kauai and turned the corner, and we saw what looked like rainbow-colored sand. It was not rainbow-colored sand, it was microplastics. And that was the first time that I started to really understand kind of the waste challenges that we had. And so I was living on the most isolated landmass on Earth and discovered a really big problem with a really big opportunity, and started to think about what a reuse infrastructure that was as big and scaled as recycling could look like, and knew that it would be hard to launch that from Hawaii. So I applied to Berkeley, and similarly, they gave me a chance. And I actually only applied to Berkeley, so I'd kind of put all my eggs in that basket because I figured that this is where a company like Dispatch Goods should start. And so I think on year 2 of my MBA, got into the SkyDeck program. And so Dispatch Goods is now on year 5 of building a new reuse infrastructure to support essentially circular packaging, reusable packaging. And we have raised about 4 rounds. We closed our Series A last year. So we've been building and scaling, and went through SkyDeck in 2020, got accepted. We had paying customers, and all of our customers evaporated. So I was actually quite nervous that they were going to kick us out, but they stuck with us to figure out how we were going to kind of rebuild in a really weird time. And luckily, they stuck with us, and that was the beginning of a really awesome partnership with SkyDeck.
Thanks, Lindsey. Ciaran.
Yeah, hi. Great to see the class. And last night, Ciaran Quinn, class of 1990. So professional background, basically. I mean, before business.
And then your story. We want to hear your story.
So I was born in. I actually grew up in Berkeley in the '60s, 3 blocks from campus. My father taught here, and he claims to be the first professor to have a beard in Berkeley. So I don't know if that's. I mean, that's what he says. Before business school, I was in the energy conservation, energy management business for 6-7 years, I guess. Came to Berkeley, and right after that, thanks to a couple of classmates in the class before us, I ended up working for a company which was a shareholder in a Soviet Union joint venture. Soviet Union, it was still the Soviet Union back then, with the Ministry of Oil and the Ministry of Rail. So it went from green to oil. And it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. While I was there, the Soviet Union fell apart. So my boss said, "Go home, turn on CNN, whatever, just watch." No internet, of course, back in 1991. That whole thing fell apart. And so I ended up literally on 3 weeks' notice moving to France in 1992, where because I'd had my first real taste of international business. So understanding international, the first bit out of it, I ended up being hired by a former a Cal alum, not Haas, but Cal alum, who'd been a former competitor of mine, to set up Europe for a company dealing with toys and gifts. I knew nothing about. So those lessons there were all about retail and how to sell across Europe. Ended up being asked to come back to California, decided not to. So I ended up buying into one of our distributors over there, which is dealing with computer products. So we sold computer products. We imported from Taiwan and from China, from the US. So I learned a lot about international import business and all that kind of stuff. So it's more international. Ended up being recruited into a licensee from Apple Computer. So Apple Computer actually did used to license products. They licensed something called the Pippin, which was the predecessor to the Apple TV. But if you research it, it's considered one of the top 10 worst tech products of all time. And I was product manager for one of the 2 licensees. And we had some Norwegian backers there. We were in Silicon Valley, in Cupertino, trying to buy out the division with our investors, when all of a sudden the CEO at the time, Gil Emilio, said to the press, "Oh, we backed away from the Pippin." So we got overnight, all these orders were being canceled. So what was going to be a $35 million buy became Apple paying us a check for $5 million, which our investors stole. So it taught me a lot about contracts there in terms of early stage companies. I mean, we started a bit of that. We literally, by shaking literally by the lapels, one of the investors, we pulled some money out to pay all the staff from these guys. But we learned a lot about early stage companies, cheating investors, and contracts. We loved it. And so 5 of us from that company were 17. 5 of us decided to form a company called VEO, Virtual European Office, where we just helped a whole bunch of interesting US companies come into Europe. 1997, Netscape was a customer, AOL was a customer, eBay, Travelocity, fascinating stuff. Got some buyout offers, ended up selling to a public company in the UK on March 28th, 2000, which is the worst time to sell for stock, which is what we did. So learned a lot about public markets and how things can go up and down. So we sold for a fortune in stock, which was not that much in terms of cash at the end of the day. But it was really interesting, being on the board of a public company and going through a mess. Wow. So lessons there learned. All these lessons came back, I think, to help with SkyDeck. After that, we ended up buying it back from the public company, closing it down, and I ended up being recruited to run Europe for a Silicon Valley-based tech company dealing with DRM, digital rights management. Got me into sports, media, entertainment. And the sports business is pretty much where I've been involved in from then on out. So we were we literally did the first streaming of any international live sports organization entity. That was the Athens 2004 Olympic Games. Did FIFA work. So that's 2004. I don't think anybody's ever streamed anything before we did it back in, let's say, 2004. Did that for a while, got recruited into one of our customers to build their Olympic business back in 2008, and ended up building their Olympic business, a big sports tech company out of Italy. So did that for about 10 years, and then decided 75% of my time traveling was too much, so I quit. And that was 2018. And then I saw you in 2018. I quit in June 1st. And then you came over in Paris in September, October. You were presenting at Vivatech, I think it was. And we were chatting, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'm going to do something. You said, come to Berkeley, do office hours, which I did, and ended up with my first SkyDeck company, which I advised for 2 hours. 2 years, 2 hours. About an hour a week, every Monday. And I just saw him yesterday morning, by the way, Simba, who you know well. So, I learned a lot of lessons from about 8 different industries. And right now, I'm solo with my company VEO2. And I have small investments in 9 different companies right now, all early stage. One's a bit bigger than early stage right now. So advising, investing, board memberships, one chairmanship, and it's just early stage, interesting stuff. Here in Silicon Valley, Canada, Switzerland, and 2 SkyDeck companies in France. There you go.
Voila. Yeah.
Voila.
So as you can see, Ciaran has an incredible background. The investors and advisors we have at SkyDeck come from every background imaginable, because whatever problem a startup is having, it comes in 50,000 different flavors, and you need all that expertise. So 850 is just getting started. That's the number of advisors and mentors we have, right? So I'd love to hear each of you talk about, you talked a little bit about how you got to SkyDeck, but Lindsey, when you were trying to go and market, what did SkyDeck specifically do for you to help you get back on track?
Yeah, so I think that there were obviously like a lot of benefits, but on the drive over, I was really thinking about what the biggest impacts were. And one, I think that one thing is as a startup, you're going to be on some trajectory, right? And I think about it kind of like a pencil. And what SkyDeck does is like just kind of change that inflection point as early as possible through the network, through the connections. Especially, I had no network in the Bay Area in tech or in kind of the VC community, and so. SkyDeck introduced us to our seed investor who led our round as well. So there was the change in the trajectory that was really helpful. I think even more tactically, in those early days, especially since I had no background, I had instinct, but I didn't know whether to trust it. And that is like a really murky, confusing time for a startup founder, especially a first-time startup founder. And I'm not sure the proportion of founders going through that are first-time founders, but I imagine it's pretty high. And so I was constantly, like you get that little, feeling in your stomach when it feels like something's not going right, or it's not easy enough, or your co-founder's not the right fit. And I think that what SkyDeck helped the most with is when I would start to have those instinctual feelings, really helping me work through those challenges, meaning like one of our advisors said, when we were kind of trying to figure out what direction to go, and we'd started to get some traction in a direction, but it felt really hard. And he said, Lindsey, right now, you guys are just like treading water. And you're not drowning immediately, but you're going to drown. So you probably should pick a direction and start swimming, because at least you have a chance at finding land. And that like really stuck with me. And whenever I feel like we're treading water, I'm like, we got to change something, because we're just drowning slowly at this point. And so there was like things like that where I would start to feel the instinct of things not going as they should. And over time, you learn to trust your gut. But in the early days, I had no idea if my gut was right or way off base, because it was a lot different than the operating room. And so that advisory network was incredibly helpful. And even in the last fundraising round, I called on one of the SkyDeck advisors to help me with cash management as we are figuring out how, what the timing of the round was going to be with accounts receivable and all the fun stuff. I think that like that's a lot of the value that SkyDeck drove to me. But I think that really it was like learning how to be a leader, learning how to be a founder, so that I could continue to make better and faster decisions as the company grew and scaled.
I think that's a really great story. I've often thought of what does an advisor do, and that includes myself when I'm advising startups. A lot of it is just saying not where you should go, but where you shouldn't go, because we've seen this movie over and over again, and we know if you go that way, it's a bad way, right? So a lot of that is just, like you said, making sure that the instinct of the founder, if it's not going over a cliff, go for it. Go for it. Ciaran, early stage founders that you've advised along those lines, what have you found?
Yeah, well, in terms of making quicker, better decisions, in principle, so I mentioned Simba, who was an early founder from 2018, who was with yesterday morning, and CEO, founder of the company. And he was, in 2020, Simba we've been working together for 2 years, and he was, it was end of 2020, November, he was in Mexico trying to surf, and he caught COVID. And at the same time, he was being offered, he knew he was going to be offered a buyout. And we were speaking a couple of times a day while he was off the West Coast in Mexico. And we knew a deal was going to come in, right? We didn't know what it was going to be. And all of a sudden, and I've gone through this stuff where crooked investors, and I had my first company ended up bankrupt a year after I left it. So you got some experience in there. And he was offered something we figured it was going to be about $10 million, right? The company who was working with him was really building him up, and they said, okay, we can give you $2 million for the company. Remember, that's the valuation which you invested at, right? So that would have been a wash for SkyDeck, no good. And he was like, oh, what do I do? You know, poor kid, he's suffering from COVID. He's 24 years old then. He turns 30 next week. And so I said, Simba, your answer is not no, it's hell no. 6 weeks later, he got an investment from Zeta of $2 million for a fraction of his company. So being able to make that, help him make that decision. He said, and we talked about that yesterday morning, about it was a game changer for him. And so having gone through that kind of stuff, it just helps.
Yeah, you gave him the courage to add the hell to the
hell
no.
no.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
By the way, that company actually invested in his company.
Oh, really?
One of the COO put some cash into the company in the next round.
Great.
On
That's
top
a great
of that.
End story. Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about engaging alumni. All these alumni here in this room who are wondering how to engage. Maybe talk about that put on your Berkeley lens, like how you've tapped into the Berkeley network through SkyDeck. Maybe SkyDeck and beyond for reaching out to alums.
Yeah, I feel like I use this network all the time. We offer reusable packaging into offices, hospitals, campuses, and then direct-to-consumer meal and grocery. And so there's almost no company that I can't get in front of with this network. And I think that's so powerful. And I would say the same with fundraising as well. There's almost no investor that I can't get in front of with this network. And so, that is a gift that has, continued to give through the years. And so I can go on LinkedIn or I ping Brian or Ciaran and say, like, who do you know at this fund? And so that network has been incredibly valuable as we've scaled. And then additionally, like founders that have been through things before. So there's a lot of founders in the room, and there was a lot of founders in my class at SkyDeck and at Haas or classes before that are a couple stages ahead of you. And I have found that those founders are the most incredibly valuable because they remember the stage you're at versus a founder that's, 5 or 10 years ahead of you. It's harder to remember. I feel like it's like parenting when I don't remember what you do with a newborn anymore. But so those founders during the hard times in particular really kept me going. Like I mentioned, I've raised a handful of rounds, and some have been easy and some have been hard. And I think that's a pretty natural part of the journey. And I find the most comfort from the founders that are a couple stages ahead that have their war tales to tell as well. And the network of founders that show you, oh, you just got to get through this hard time. I've been through it too. You'll get to the other side of it. That's the stuff that you really need when you're deep in the trenches. And so I think that's another piece of the network that's incredibly valuable.
I love that you said, there's almost nobody I can't get to through this network. Lindsey is never on airplane mode. Lindsey is what we call a compliment in the startup world is a hustler. She is always on, obviously takes time. You did all this while giving birth, by the way.
That was my least favorite round. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to get the round it done in time by the time my daughter came, and I had, misestimated about 3 weeks. So that was like a really awful 3 weeks of dealing with a very, very young child and trying to get a round closed.
Yeah, but you did it. Yeah, incredible.
I don't recommend it.
Okay. Get noted. Ciaran. Yes, the network beyond Haas, beyond SkyDeck, into the rest of the Berkeley network. How are you tapping into that with what you do?
Into the rest of the Berkeley network beyond Haas.
Yeah, beyond SkyDeck.
Beyond SkyDeck.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of friends here even who we talk with about different things. There are classmates. Actually, none here right now. I think we've talked with about different things, but I do tap into classmates when somebody needs something, and so it's a really, really good thing. And they are now beyond Haas, of course. So being able to know that somebody's got some work in some expertise in some specific area, you can make an introduction. That's super helpful. I mean, one of the best things I think that advisors can do is help make the right informed introduction. Now, one of the mistakes a lot of companies make is say, hey, can you introduce me? And the answer is no. Really, I mean, and the reason is because they just want, okay, I'll figure it out when I talk to the person. I said, no. You've got to be ready. You've got to be informed. You've got to know what you're asking for and why, so you can make valuable use of your one bullet with this senior person you're going to talk with. And if you do that right, it works. I've seen it not be done right. We all have, right?
Yeah, the art of introductions,
yeah.
For sure. And then I wanted to also remind people that not only Berkeley alums can tap into Berkeley and all of y'all, but because of our fund, Carry Share, so we have lots of founders who didn't go to Berkeley. But since Berkeley has invested in them and will get a return, we inaugurated a whole bunch of people around the world who didn't go to Berkeley, but were highly invested in them. The network's invested in them. And then that's why a lot of the advisors, probably about 80% maybe of the advisors and mentors at SkyDeck are Berkeley alum, which means 20 to 25% of them are not. But they're having a great time because we try to give them a great time. That's the compensation for them, right? Because we don't pay them. So we give them a good experience. So we've got like one of our most active and helpful advisors went to Stanford, and he's having a great time. We're having a great time. So through that, you know, the phrase business models drive everything. Because of that carry share in any founder from anywhere, we've ignited not just Berkeley, but the whole world, which is our goal, world domination, right? You want to hear about some startup trends? Because we got some, okay. Lindsey, as a startup in the trenches right now, talk about sort of what keeps you up at night, what sounds good. Does anything sound good given the current economy? Yeah, talk about that a bit.
Yeah, it's a weird time to be in climate. I'll say that much. Yeah, there's a lot of rebranding of climate right now, I would say. And so I think that's one thing that's just concerning my lens is generally through the climate tech ecosystem. And there's a lot of fear of what climate funding is going to look like in the next few years. That being said, Dispatch was built not counting on policy tailwinds. We were built putting together an economic case for reusable packaging. And so we're not directly affected by some of the grants and whatnot that other climate founders are. Interestingly enough, there's a weird paradox happening with the tariffs because as the cost of cheap single-use packaging increases, we actually are increasingly like a stronger economic option for businesses. So we have a bit of a tariff tailwind, which is it's something that was on my bingo card for this year. So yeah, I think that overall, it's just what's going to happen to climate. It's not whether our business model is sound in a kind of like an anti-climate administration. It's more, are investors going to be continuing to invest in climate? And I think that my concern is about Dispatch, but also just about companies that need to exist to solve our largest climate challenges. And I think that kind of macro concern is probably keeping me up more at night right now than what's going on in the Dispatch world, because we're actually kind of well suited in this economic environment to scale quickly. Yeah, there's a lot of very nervous climate funds about whether there's going to be, future funds, investors continuing to invest in climate just because of the fear of association with the word climate. I have founder friends that their businesses have been absolutely decimated by the lack of funding and the attempted dismantling of the climate tech ecosystem.
There's a very exciting technology developed at Berkeley by Professor Omer Yagi, and he's doing a startup. He's figured out how to literally pull water out of thin air. So he took his technology, it's a little device, not that big. They went to Death Valley, and after 20 minutes or so, they have a cup of water. In Death Valley, right? They've also figured out how to do the same thing, pulling carbon out of the air. I mean, if this thing works, that could kind of be the holy grail. He is talking about rebranding with this extraordinary technology, and he's calling it the air economy. So I hear you about the rebranding of climate tech. My husband has a climate tech company, so that is a topic of conversation. All right, Ciaran, you see. So Ciaran lives in Paris, but he obviously, how many passports do you have? Three. He's working on his fourth. So he has a real global view. So talk about Europe and the U.S. What are you seeing in terms of like what's keeping you up as how you're advising your startups, like the gremlins out there you're warning them about?
I think the impact of tariffs, if they really do happen as predicted, can have a significant impact on certain companies. Most of the ones I'm involved with are dealing with services, and so less so. But one, which is a SkyDeck. So I'm involved with, invested in 3 SkyDeck companies. So my data set is limited, right? Just 9 companies. But 3 of them are SkyDeck graduates. And one of them, Ochi, which is from a year ago, just a year ago, they use computer vision and artificial intelligence to analyze your running gait from the side and from behind to see if something is off. It was founded by an all-American athlete and student who's not a Cal alum. In fact, only one of the three companies has a Cal alum, to back up what you're saying there. And his concern is how's the effective tariffs going to impact my customer base, which includes Adidas, right? And so they brainstormed, and as anybody should do, and they figured out, okay, we can actually turn this into an advantage. Because if it's costing way more for shoes to come in from China and Vietnam, where the bulk of them are made, how do they turn this into a benefit, how do they turn what they do into a benefit for their customers? And the specific thing is, if you're going to buy a pair of shoes and all of a sudden they're more expensive, you better make sure you get that right. And so their application is, which is coming in through right now, is, okay, with this analysis of somebody's running gait, we can help you choose a better pair of shoes for you, which means that you don't need to buy, in a way, the price has gone up, but you're not going to be checking them out because whatever, the front rocker was wrong, as an example. So that's the kind of things they have done in terms of this challenge with tariffs. Not quite your question, but I hope that helps.
Yeah, for sure. If anybody knows what's going to happen with the economy, please come see us at SkyDeck so we can tell our founders what's going on. And just random questions. Scale of 1 to 10. How worried are you about the world economy? 10? 11. It goes to 11. It's 7. Only 7. Okay, that's my classmate Tony. Go talk to him. He's in good shape.
5 or 6.
I would 5 or 6. Yeah. What about you, from the startup founder?
I don't know. I feel like I get tunnel vision. I'm just going to keep washing trash. The world might be on fire.
That is your day job, washing dishes.
I feel like, I think one thing this is like not a direct answer, and sorry for that, but in the first kind of round of this administration, I was worried all the time about everything. And I think that I have such low bandwidth to worry about everything else that I'm going to focus on the one piece of the world that I'm trying to change and that we're trying to change at Dispatch. And that's all. If I just focus all my worry on that thing, then the rest I can't worry about. So I probably actually am under a 5 because I'm just got super focused on
right on. That's a hustler founder right there. Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it, and maybe think about this too, is, let's focus on the things we can control, and turning off airplane mode, developing relationships, getting our network stronger than ever in a time of uncertainty. That seems like a really good idea, not just professionally, but personally, for our own satisfaction as humans, connect with your tribe. So, which is what we're doing today.
I just think startups really do need to pay attention to the global economy in a big way. And I'll give you just one example. Coming back again to this Ochi company, which has taken in 700,000 euros from the French government. French government, BPI, just told them 2 weeks ago that, thanks to the pressure on NATO and the foreign and the Trump administration's pressure for European countries to raise their spending, the money's got to come from somewhere. And BPI, this major French fund, has just said, we're going to get less funding. It's going to go to defense. So be aware of that. So direct impact. You need to understand, what is going on in the global economy. It's not just local. It's international. And, for me, it's, living overseas, far more international than it was 30 years ago. Far more.
Yeah. So I told Lindsey and Ciaran I wanted them to, not right now, a little bit later, though, pitch SkyDeck to all of you. So from the founder's point of view, any founders in the audience, advisor to join. So get your pitches ready. A 1-minute speed pitch. And then we want to have lots of time for questions. I think we have till 3, right? So we have plenty of time for questions. And if you've got a questions halfway through or a comment about a great thing to say, like Brian, raise your hand. And I think we have a mic runner back there. But yeah, lots of questions. Do you have a question, Brian? All right. We got a question. Okay. Yeah, we wait for the mic because then it comes on the recording. The session is being recorded.
Can you hear me okay?
Can you turn on?
Now?
Yeah.
Great. This is not another pun. Lindsey, so 2 questions. Lindsey, could you just briefly, and 30, 45 seconds, take us through the life cycle of a reusable package. And Caroline, if you could talk to us a bit about how running such a broad-based accelerator, how do you focus the investment decisions? How do you segment your focus in terms of what types of companies and what criteria you use to kind of narrow it down?
Okay. Go ahead, Lindsey.
Sure. Yeah. We work with two main segments right now. One is direct-to-consumer meal and grocery. So the logistics of that are slightly different than in large food service, which is our other category. In direct-to-consumer meal and grocery, the company's ordering packaging like freezer packs, thermal tote bags, and maybe reusable meal containers, although most start with the freezer packs and the tote bags. Those get delivered to a consumer home. During the next delivery, they're picked up. They're consolidated at a warehouse. Then we're running trucks to that warehouse, picking it up, taking it to our cleaning centers, cleaning it, repalletizing it, and then shipping it back so that it looks and feels like new back to the company where it originated. And that was really how we started to build the infrastructure for cleaning. After we built that, we just invested in some automation. It's absolutely game-changing. And now that we have this really cheap way of cleaning things, we've expanded into lower cost packaging. So we're doing meal containers, cups, bowls, things like that. And in that packaging, we actually manufacture that ourselves because we wanted to design something that was durable but also very, very affordable. And so that packaging we're manufacturing in Vietnam. It's coming to the US, and then it's getting delivered to our customers. Stanford is one of them. Berkeley is not, so we should put pressure on this ecosystem. And then the packaging is used by diners. There's, instead of 3 bins, there's 4 bins. So there's a dispatch bin next to the trash, compost, and recycling. And then the packaging is aggregated and goes back to our cleaning centers where it's cleaned. And then the companies like Stanford are just ordering packaging like single use, and some of it's new and some of it's used. And so in terms of water, carbon, and waste, all of it is lower than single-use, even compostables. And one way of thinking about that is the supply chain is so much shorter than where most of the packaging is coming from, which best case scenario is like middle America, but more often than not is Asia.
Thank you.
Yep. Wow. So applications, as you can imagine, 3,000 applications for 20 spots. A lot happens in there. And we do it again through the help of our incredible network, our advisors and mentors. So about 100 people, most of them advisors and mentors, the SkyDeck staff. I'm sure we sent you and Will and Lucine a bunch of applications. Those are reviewed online. And from that, we narrowed that down to a set of first round interviews. Those are 20 minutes via Zoom. Used to be in person back in the day, but anyway, it's on Zoom now. And those are participated in by people from the staff, people from the fund. The fund is very active in the whole process, as you can imagine. And then from that, we narrow it down to about 60 or so final round interviews. Those are 50 minutes on Zoom. And then from that, we narrow it down to a set of either, we love you, you're in, or no, definitely not in, or most of them are DD. And so we start asking questions. There's a lot of email back and forth, and our fund manager, Ciaran, pesters them about their business model, et cetera. From that, we get to the 20 or so for the batch. And then also through that process, we get 50 to 70, depending on what's going on in the cohort, of the PAD 13. That's the incubator companies we talked about. So that's the process. It takes about 6 weeks. It's crazy fast. It's lots of fun. It's for someone who loves to just learn about a million things all the time. That's me and probably a lot of you in this room. It's so much fun. It's absolutely fantastic. Mm-hmm. Yes, question in the back. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Just a follow-up on exactly that topic. So you talked through the mechanism of the selection. It'd be really interesting to hear kind of the criteria that you're using around, because it is so broad-based. You know, are you focusing specifically on first-time founders? Are you got particular market segments? Have you got a particular thesis that you're pushing through?
Yeah, that was part of your question. So what are we looking for? In one way, it's actually a very simple definition for the accelerator. We're looking for a company that, with our investment by the fund of $200K, our incredible network, our advisors, our programming, In 6 months, they're ready to pitch to institutional investors, a seed round of 2 to 4 million usually, and raise. So by that criteria, that can apply to life science, silicon, hardware, consumer, anything. To be a little more granular about it, there's not a lot of evidence at this stage, right? So when Lindsey's company came, she had a customer, which she said vanished, but we knew Lindsey and her team were going to just keep on going no matter what. So a lot of it is really betting on the founders at that stage. So founder problem fit, right? This founder has the right skills, or if they don't have the skills, they are clearly reaching out and they will take advantage of our network to get those skills or add them to the team. And that there's an art of trying to figure out in a very short period of time, is this person going to do what it takes to grow a startup? Because there's no really way to get around the fact that you're just going to work your butt off really hard all the time. That's what it is. It's your whole life. Now, you can also have a baby and do it. That's possible. But I suspect you didn't have much of a social life during that.
I still don't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can do things. I mean, I had small children when I did my startup. But it is all-encompassing, and it's really difficult, and it requires a lot of help and support, not just professionally, but emotionally. Is this the kind of person that will do that? One of the questions that we ask that it's optional, we can't require this question, but we get a lot of interesting answers, is tell us about a time in your life when you faced a challenge you had to overcome. And we get amazing stories in there. One of the most striking ones, a founder in the batch that just graduated a few weeks ago. I grew up in foster care. I was shuttled from home to home. I had such a severe speech impediment, I could not talk. So I went into sales because, and commission sales, because I knew if I didn't talk, I would not eat. And we're betting on that founder. So is there something in that founder, like Lindsey? She's just going to do what it takes. So that is much more of an art than a science, obviously. But I think having seen a couple of thousand companies, there's a couple of clues that we know to look for. Yes, the gentleman in the back had a question, and then you. Yes.
Very inspiring, thank you. Karsten, Ember 24. So we spoke about founders and the power of the network. When you look at an advisor, what are you looking for? What skills and knowledge does SkyDeck want to have on the team to help founders like?
Great question. So because we're industry agnostic, we need every expertise imaginable. So a lot of the times we're looking for specific technical expertise. Supply chain, manufacturing chips, healthcare reimbursements, FDA, anything you name it, we need that expertise. A lot of what we're looking for, though, and by the way, there's two categories of advisors of those 850 people. There's mentors and advisors. Generally, the difference is mentors are a little younger, earlier stage in their career. Advisors a little bit more seasoned, but it's not a perfect exact cutoff. Like you have 5 gray hairs and you're an advisor. It kind of varies. But what we really like to see is someone who has some kind of industry experience, executing something in some industry, and on top of that, some startup experience, either as a founder or as an advisor. So they have the industry experience, and they've seen the rodeo play out a couple of times before, and you're like, Ciaran can go, no, do not do that. Say hell no, right? Because they've kind of seen this play before. But it really varies. What we are not looking for, now that we're a popular program, it's now competitive to become a SkyDeck advisor and mentor. We get about 150 applications, 200 every 6 months. We admit 20 or 25. So that itself has become competitive. So what we're looking to exclude are the people who just want to put SkyDeck on their LinkedIn and never participate. So again, like the the founders, we're looking for someone that really wants to come and participate in the network and contribute.
Can I just add something to that? I found, and I don't know if you have a co-founder. Do you have a co-founder?
I did.
You did. Okay. Having a co-founder is a huge plus, I've noticed. And when I've seen just one individual, it's much more challenging. The 1 plus 1 really is much more than the two.
Yeah, for the incubator, we'll take all stages, a single founder, Berkeley, a couple of Berkeley students. But for the accelerator, this has to be an investable company. So it's at least 2 people. They've built something that we can look at. They've interacted with the market a little bit. If they're a life science company, they have data or indications that indicate that they can get to clinical trials in some reasonable time. But it's very rare we take a couple of founders in a PowerPoint, unless they have had a prior exit, or we just admitted a startup. They're very early stage. It's a couple of founders with not much more than their PowerPoint, but it's a SkyDeck advisor, right? So a lot of experience there. So Mahendra, which you might know Mahendra. Yes, other questions? This gentleman up front has a question. There, right here.
That's you. I know, but because someone could. Hi. So I have a very simple question. First question is I guess the 1 batch per 6 months per 1 batch, right? And how many batches did you accumulate so far?
So we just had the demo day for batch 19.
19, so almost 20.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Mm-hmm. Okay, and my second question is, because I'm from Japan, and I'm leading the Japan chapter of Haas Alumni Network. So I sometimes inquired about SkyDeck, or what's the relationship with Haas or
Koji.
Yes.
Yes, there's some email with us.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi.
So eventually,
Yeah.
I talked with Will a little
Yeah.
bit, but anyhow. Mm-hmm. So my second question is, what's your idea as to the collaboration with the foreign entity, including Japan and other areas outside the United States?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're a university program. We don't teach, we don't do research. We have to raise our own funds, as does like the rock stars at the Berkeley Artificial Intelligence. They have to do it too. So that said, how do we do that? We do that because we don't want to ask our startups to pay a big fee. We do that primarily through partnerships with international partners that send startups to our sponsored program. And so our biggest partner is the Japanese government, an association called JETRO, the Japanese External Trade Association. They sponsor about 30 startups a year to come to our program. They don't receive investment, but they get a lot of good stuff. They get the network, they get workshops, programming, they get mentors. And it's been great because not only does it help us pay the rent at the beautiful SkyDeck building. By the way, come visit sometime. Top floor of that building right next to BART. We are still the tallest building in Berkeley for a while. And this gets us visibility into the startup ecosystem in Japan. It gets Japanese founders looking at SkyDeck. So now we're getting more applications from talented Japanese founders. One that we're really, it's just very cool. We love to brag about a company called BlockQ that's using quantum computing to unlock lost Bitcoins. There's about $150 billion of lost keys just sitting there, right? Have you heard the story of the guy who owns the pizza joint who, he'd have 100 million anyway? They're trying to figure out a way to speed up that process so that they can unlock. So it's super cool stuff. So we have a relationship with the Japanese government. We worked with the Swedish government, the Italian government, the Taiwanese government. If anybody here is with an international organization, we'd love to talk. Will is helping us talk to governments and organizations in Singapore and Asia. So it brings in funding so we can pay the bills, and it introduces us to the most important resource around the world for a startup accelerator, in addition to all the advisors, talent, right? Talented founders.
How about the corporate partner?
Yeah, so most of our corporate partners are actually Japanese.
No,
right? So Daikin, Chubu, I'm sure you know them. They are looking to connect with Silicon Valley, so they make a donation to our program, and then we connect them to cool stuff going on here in Silicon Valley. We are also looking for corporate partners. So pitch for SkyDeck. If you are part of a corporation that's interested in joining our network, access to the startups, access to the cool stuff going on, and then access to talent, which is a big benefit for all of corporate partners. Come talk to me. We'd love to talk about that. Other questions? Yes, right there.
Hi, I'm Jazz, and I'm early stage founder. I'm building Luna, which is a health companion for teen girls, as you can imagine, never more needed in this climate with social media, toxic misinformation. As you can hear, I'm British. I'm building out of London, but I've been in the US for 48 hours now, and the energy here is out of this world. And to be honest, as much as I love London, it's quite small city energy. It's not giving what you guys are. And so my question is, what advice would you have for British founders wanting to move to Silicon Valley, who think big and who know their app is going to be massive but can't get that across in the UK? Because that's me, and that's where I see Luna. So any advice, would love to hear from you.
SkyDeck applications open in July, so please,
It's Jazz.
please apply. Yes. So as you all know, but just reminding everybody, Silicon Valley is by orders of magnitude the most powerful, most active, most developed startup ecosystem in the world. Nothing else comes close. Everything else is a far, far second, and there's some website here with numbers. That also means if you come here from outside the US and you are a hustler, like Lindsey, there's a lot you can do. There's a lot of things you can go to. The world is your oyster, right? Just come and connect. You're already connecting with one of the SkyDeck advisors, so you're in good shape. Yeah, for sure. Any other founders here with a startup you want to pitch? Okay. Yes, go ahead. Question.
Sorry, not a founder, but a question. I want to touch again on the impact of the macroeconomic situation a bit, especially as it regards to like early stage startup investments. So question is basically for from the investment side, essentially. How do you see the investments going into early stage startups getting impacted, especially in the like coming 6 months or a year or so?
Yeah, we're worried about it. Yeah, we're no question, we're worried about it. A lot of people's dry powder has blown away in the wind a bit. People are much more conservative. That said, Batch 19 just graduated a few weeks ago. One has already closed their round. 2 others have gotten term sheets. It's actually looking good. So immediate metrics for SkyDeck batches are actually quite good. Ochi, the startup that Ciaran advises, just raised. That said, I don't think anybody has any illusions that it's going to be even harder than normal over the next however long this plays out. Again, as I said earlier, if anybody knows what's happening, please come tell us at SkyDeck. I mean, tariffs, yes, no, maybe. Today, not tomorrow. We're just all hunkering down a bit, assuming it's going to be harder.
To add on to that, we're actually going out for our Series B, which might mean that we're insane. But we went ahead and obviously sat down with all of our current investors, and all of them said they're still deploying. They are also worried, but it seems like that they are not slowing down. What's weird, it's been like just such a wild 5 years that there's been so many ups and downs that to some degree this volatility feels a little bit like at least the normal for startups that have been started, like around 2020. So they are scared, but right now our current investors said that they're not slowing down, at least yet.
Good. Ciaran.
Did you want that pitch?
Oh, yeah.
Do you?
Yes,
Okay.
we want the... Yeah, we only have a few minutes. All right, now I would like to introduce the pitch for the SkyDeck advisor. by Ciaran Quinn.
Yeah. Well, actually, the first thing, a request. So if anybody, so Ochi, this company is one of the SkyDeck companies I advise. They are looking for a good business development executive in the U.S. who understands the shoe, especially the running shoe industry. So if anybody knows, company's hiring right now. Seriously, Rob Moon? That's great news. See, the power of the class, right there is how this works, right? That's fantastic. So, SkyDeck Advisors, I mean, why do I do it? I do it because I decided I wanted to give back in some way. I have a lot of benefits came out. I mean, I met my wife through Haas. My second son's 2 godparents of the class before us. So, I grew up here in the 60s, all those good things. I wanted to give back because I really admire and appreciate Haas. So giving back is just a very valuable thing in itself. But there are also intimate, direct benefits which you get. It's not just giving back, but I get to meet these amazing people, right? Simba, he was 23, right, when I met him. Incredible, seeing what these people do. Seeing all these different industries, which I don't know about. I may be involved in 8 industries, different so far, but I've went 10x on that, just having been involved and looking at these different industries. You get to learn. You get to stay aware of what's going on. So it's really, really valuable to be able to get some personal benefit. And, I've now have some, hopefully, ultimately valuable investments from 3 of these SkyDeck companies. And for that reason, an offer. So yesterday morning, I was in Cafe Milano, and I ran into Dean Lyons, Chancellor Lyons, and he said that they are very worried about the situation where they may get hundreds of millions of dollars of government funding hit. And so we actually talked briefly about getting money into the school. So my offer right here, right now, is that if any of the companies, SkyDeck companies I'm involved in, make any money at all, I'll give my 1% right back to the school.
Awesome, Ciaran. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other advisors here who'd want to do that?
All
Will,
right.
he's raising his
Awesome.
hand.
Thank you.
Because it was
Yes, applause for that, please. Thank you. That is a wonderful offer.
Hopefully, if Simba's company is worth $1 billion, that's real money coming back into.
Absolutely.
But if it can make that happen. So it's a two-way street when it comes to being an advisor here. You're giving a lot. You're learning from Rob Moon, maybe a lead here for a sales executive, and you're giving and getting. And it's really, really rewarding. It's free work, right? You're not paid for this, but it's very, very rewarding.
That was a hell of a pitch. Thank you, Ciaran. All right, Lindsey,
Yeah, that's
founder.
a tough act to follow. There's an old Chris Rock skit that I reference a lot, which is he talks about when he was young and broke and his car would always break down, and that if he would try to wave people down from the side of the road to push his car, no one would pull over. But if he would start pushing his car, then people would stop and help him. And so I think that for founders, you have to start pushing the car yourself, and maybe with your small team. But what's amazing about the SkyDeck community is they start to help you push that car. And eventually that car turns into a minivan, and the minivan turns into a 26-foot truck, and then it turns into, a semi-truck. And sometimes it starts, rolling on its own, and those are the amazing times that you're like, bye, I don't need you. Just kidding, you always do. But then you hit a steep hill, and you call on the community again. Over and over and over again, we've had tough moments that I've continued to call back on the community and say, hey, this is like a tough time for us. I need the support again. And so you have this entire village of support that you can call on when you need it, and it's just inevitable that you will. And so getting that support early and building that network to call on so that when you can celebrate when the truck starts rolling quickly, and then call on support when you get through a bit of an uphill. I think that's the ongoing support as well as the initial support you get from the SkyDeck community.
That's an awesome analogy. Thank you. I'm gonna use that. I want to just echo a little bit what Ciaran said. The hammer is coming down on Berkeley from the administration. There's a lawsuit announced into funding. Supposedly they're doing some investigation into our funding. Please keep your brain off airplane mode. Connect with everybody at Berkeley. Pay attention to what's going on the campus. It's going to be some hard times ahead. No question about it. Not just for the whole economy, but Berkeley is a target, as you all know. So engage with a network, hear what's going on, how can you help? Because I guarantee not only will it help Berkeley, but it is a ton of fun to engage with other Haas alumni and other Berkeley alumni. With that, it's 3 o'clock. Thank you for coming, and thank you for listening to Everything But SkyDeck.